And we're live. Welcome to the Nilvah Nexus Thursday night Torah-based hangout. James the Idol Smasher at gmail.com. Please, if you'd like to join the conversation, join the Nilvah Nexus Facebook page and Google Plus group. We do this every Thursday, and if you like the topic and you want to join in, all you have to do is like one of those two groups, and you will get a link every week that we have a hangout, which is pretty much every week. Parsha today, Vayera. The topic of tonight is liberty, and I've had the topic before on this, and I've back on the old version of this channel, I used to make I made a couple videos on it where I honestly believe that, you know, keeping the 7 laws, the universal concept of Torah, will bring liberty. But I've gotten to think about it, and I'm very gung-ho on libertarian causes and whatnot. And then I stopped and thought about it. Are we really free under Torah? As free as we might think, that's the kind of, I'm taking the devil's advocate. Not that I really believe in a devil, but you know, I'm taking his advocate on this one because the first primary law in basically Judaism, but in Noahide law, the covenant, the universal covenant made with mankind, it's transmitted at Torah, or transmitted Sinai in the Torah, is the prohibition of idolatry. And I think this is where I think I destroyed it a long time ago, that's where liberty ends, because in a Torah-based society, we can't allow idolatry. But nowadays in America, you know, your neighbor's a pagan, your neighbor likes the Thor god or whatever, you know. My 3-year-old's trying to bang down my door, excuse me, and she's making funny noises. So anyway, so there's where liberty couldn't, in an ideal Torah-based society, I don't know if liberty would work. And that was where I was going with that. Ras Shalom, my daughter was distracting me. I was going somewhere with that, but I think you know where I was going. Can we be liberty-loving people and be Torah-observant folk, be it Jew or Noahide? You said something, Gav. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Define liberty. Define liberty.
The ability to do what you want, so long as it doesn't affect the ability to live as you want to live without negatively affecting at least one other person from doing the same.
Okay.
That's how I would think.
The Torah has a different take on what liberty is. Liberty is not whatever you want when you want. Freedom is
James, you got a horrible echo.
Freedom is the ability to serve God without the interference of anybody else.
See, yeah. Okay, we're in Exodus right now. We're in the second parsha of Exodus. This is where freedom gets in, because, you know, it's easy for me to be all freedom-loving dude, being an American and being raised with very patriotic, you know, family, and not being an unpatriot myself. Yeah, we like to find freedom things in the Torah, but is it really freedom, or are you moving from a horrible condition to another? You know, are we moving from slavery to subservience? Although we have great freedom as non-Jews, we really do. The Noahide law is pretty easy. I mean, there's a whole lot that that you're allowed to do under Noahide law. But in Torah, yes, I know they're two different things, and I'm not going to equate the two. But on the topic of freedom, we go from Pharaoh to Sinai.
Mm-hmm.
We go from Egypt to, you know, we have one set of laws which is oppressive, and another set of laws which is allows one to flourish. What's the word I'm looking for? Very fruitful law. But there's still a subservience, particularly with the Israelite, because I mean, there's a diet restriction. There are restrictions. There are laws. Especially the Levites have to be a certain way. There has to be a certain way to marry. There's no willy-nilly. So is it really freedom? I'll go ahead and shut up.
Well, no. If freedom, look. Define freedom. Again, define freedom. If you're a slave, every single thing you do is determined by someone else. You have absolutely no moral agency of your own. You can't do good. You have no virtue as a human being as a slave because everything you do is controlled. Any good you do is at the direction of somebody else. You are not morally responsible when you're a slave. You have no moral agency. There's no growth. There's nothing. And that's why it's very important that once you exit that state, you can't just go from slavery to freedom. You take someone who's been a slave their entire life and you turn them loose, how are they going to act? They have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to do in this world. So you need an instruction, and you need some type of transition period between the slavery and when you're really free. And that's why the generation that experienced slavery had to die off before we got the land. A slave doesn't know how to be free. Okay, so you take the chains off, you're free. What does that even mean? How am I supposed to take care of myself? Free to do everything you've done since the minute you were born has been controlled by someone else. You don't even know how to live like a human being. And you call that free?
Perhaps when the slaves were freed here, that was something that was not really thought of. No one really put any thought into that, did they? And I think it's hurt us as a country. That's a really good point.
It's not their fault. It's not their fault at all. It's epigenic. At this point, it's something that it's a trauma that they've inherited. And to whatever extent that may be, and to whatever progress they may have made, that's fine. But the thing is you can't take people that have no freedom and give them maximum freedom and expect them to turn out to be normal.
Kind of like a prisoner who just got let out after he's been in prison for a decade.
Yeah, and believe me, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details. I've been in prison. The difference is remarkable once you get out. It's okay, cool. I can go anywhere and do whatever. No, you really can't go anywhere and do whatever. If you do that, you'll end up right back in prison pretty quick. You have to moderate your behavior.
I think that's exactly the difference, though. I think you said it right there, Rabbi. That's that thought of going out and doing whatever. That is like what it's like to be in Egypt, no? You want to refine your behavior. You want to refine why you're doing something for a particular reason. And I think that's what real freedom is.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, in a way, there's a certain kind of fake freedom in being imprisoned or being enslaved. It takes all the guesswork out of living. I mean, I've been in prison. I've also been in the army, and believe me or not, there's not a whole lot of difference. They tell you when to sleep, when to go to the bathroom, when to get up, when to eat, when to do this, when to shower, when to do that. There's a lot of what I call fake freedom in that. You don't have to think for yourself, and you surrender your agency as a human being to an institution or to someone appointed over you. But the second you're free, quote unquote, the second those chains come off, you're morally accountable to yourself. And how are you going to act if you don't have a standard?
I had been to the room. He's a pretty cool guy. He's one of the tribe, Yahudi. He's a Yid. How you doing, Ben? I haven't seen you in a while.
It's been a while. I'm doing all right. How are you?
You sound good.
Schlepping along.
Is that a labyrinth on your profile page, on your avatar?
Yeah.
I love a labyrinth.
Yeah, me too, man. I looked one up today. That's some kind of friggin' seminary. I'm driving in there and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. Leave. It's like, all right.
Oh.
I called them. Bastards. Have you seen the International Labyrinth Locator website?
I couldn't hear you, man. You have to speak up. I got an echo. Apparently, I'm producing an echo. Let me hang up. I'll be right back.
No, don't hang up. Don't hang up.
Don't hang up. I'll just exit out. I'll be right back, y'all.
Okay.
I was just saying. I'll say it when he comes back. I'll put a post. There's a worldwide labyrinth locator.
Oh, nice.
So you can, and they truly are all over the world.
There is a labyrinth website for locating them.
Yeah. It's not a great search engine, but it's okay.
Man, James, you have the sensitivity on the microphone real sensitive. Is there a way to just turn it down a little, maybe? Or maybe the speakers you got blasting? Something. Headphones?
Any better now?
Testing. 1, 2. It's livable.
They're saying there's a National Labyrinth Locator website. Not a great search engine, but I went to one. I thought they told me it was open, but it's okay. There are enough around me that I don't need to go to that one particularly. I just happen to be out there. I was annoyed though. Not that annoyed, but. So do you walk the labyrinth a lot? Do you do it, or just have you? Someone said they walk the labyrinth.
Yeah, we've got a labyrinth here in Oklahoma City, and I do enjoy. I do enjoy walking it. It's at the Myriad Gardens, and yeah, I have a lot of fun.
Oklahoma.
It's good. It's like pacing, only better, you know.
Well, I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. Ooh, echo. But yeah, maybe because I've been meditating for a while, I just kind of like, whoa, this is good shit. Kind of. I very much like it. Well, kind of. When you say pacing, pacing to me implies what does pacing imply? Being unsettled, I guess. You know, and
it's good exercise, I hear. Welcome, Brother John.
What up, James? How you doing?
Topic is liberty, but I'm playing the devil's advocate. Of course, being from a Torah-based perspective, is liberty workable? And you know, we were talking about freedom, and I consider freedom to be, in a lot of ways, an illusion. You're not really free of anything. What is freedom? And you know, we were talking about when you
we just choose better masters.
Yeah, we were talking about a slave, or maybe even someone who's been incarcerated for a long time. You know, you take the chains off of them, and are you really free? You know, can you? I mean, and what kind of freedom do we get when we leave Egypt, Mitzrayim, when we leave bondage, when we leave confinement, when the chains are finally broken? Are we you know, what is it that we're free from, and what is this freedom we're going to be living in? Is there freedom? Is there not? You know, and the big thing is are you free to be a human being? I think that would be one big way to look at it is first, are you free to take care of yourself? Do you have the moral fortitude, especially when like Gav was saying, you know, you've been told all your life when you wake up, when you sleep, what you're going to be doing at 9 a.m., what you're going to be doing at noon, you know, where you can go, how long you can stay there, if you can go anywhere. You know, being a slave is, you know, and then when you're freed suddenly, what is there? And is that what we need? Is that where the human consciousness goes? When, you know, when people, for instance, leave religion, you know, there is a freedom to it, but are you really a free man when you're freed from that? Or like you say, do we just choose better masters? It's a really good way of saying that. Anybody?
Well, I don't know if I can address that right now. I had to come in because the gentleman with the labyrinth came in, and it was just weird because Frank and I were talking about labyrinths yesterday in a hangout. He brought it up that he saw it in the church, and a couple of us was like, "Why do you saw a labyrinth?" And, you know, we never saw it. And then we started looking at images, and then in some parts, I think there was, I don't know where it was exactly, but they have them on the floor. And I guess it's kind of a meditative thing. You walk in the labyrinth. It's
a walking meditation. I mean, I think I've seen, some people do it as they say it's a, you know, a prayer or worshipful thing. But I'm a lay atheist, so there's no worshiping happening from this Apikoros. So I don't worship. Can't worship. But
in what way are you an Apikoros, if I might ask?
I mean, I'm an atheist.
You can meditate.
I don't know if I'm actually an Apikoros.
Oh, it's actually not an Apikoros. You're what's called a min.
Okay.
What's the difference?
A min is someone who denies that God exists, and Apikoros is someone who says, "Okay, maybe God exists, but you know, this Bible is irrelevant, or this teaching is irrelevant."
I mean, you know, in some sense, we're all agnostics, aren't we? Well,
Sure.
call me what you want.
I was talking with an atheist fellow. I don't know if he's Jewish or not. I don't think he's Jewish. I think he's got a Scot or a Scottish like name, and he was really, you know, kind of surprised that that in Judaism we don't focus on belief, we focus on action. He's like, wait a second, I cannot believe in God and be right with him if I behave and be a good person and follow a moral standard. I went, yeah, that's, you know, and he was shocked. He's like, wow, I could do that. I'm like, yeah, it's not so bad, is it?
Yeah, but then, what if you really like bacon? You know, what if you're like a real bacon fan, like going like full paleo diet and have to have your bacon and eggs every day? I mean, I guess you could go turkey bacon or duck bacon, but you know, come on.
Oh, you can't talk to me. I'm not Jewish, so I'm perfectly allowed my bacon.
There you go. So I found the labyrinth locator in Oklahoma City. It looks like there are a few different labyrinths. One's on Paseo, wherever that is. Another one on Morrell Avenue, which looks really nice. At the Oklahoma State University. There's one at the Labyrinth Temple. That's interesting sounding. I don't know. There's a few. That's cool. Who would have thought? Yeah. So, Rabbi, are you actually a rabbi?
Yes.
Oh.
He only plays one on Google Hangouts.
I could be. I couldn't deny it. How do you really know anything, you know?
Yes, I'm an ordained rabbi, but I don't have like a shul or a congregation, so to speak. Most of my rabbinical career, at least right now, I've only been a rabbi for 2 years, but I teach at a boys' school.
Okay, where'd you get smicha from?
The Rabbanut here in Israel.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like
Hey, current events real quick. I hear okay, so you said that, okay, if the PLO is going to just break everything with Israel, they're still going to be there, right?
Well, the PLO as it exists right now is based. So you can use two terms interchangeably. There's the PLO and there's the Palestinian National Authority. The Palestinian National Authority was created as this kind of quasi-government state in waiting in the early 90s when they signed the Oslo Accords, and we signed the Oslo Accords with them. And after the end of a 5-year period, it was supposed to lead to the end of the conflict and the creation of a Palestinian state within some type of framework or borders. That was, 25 years ago almost. And it's really been kind of a wasted policy effort at this point. It hasn't really brought anything good. But anyway, the Palestinian Authority is threatening to withdraw from Oslo and to cease, any and all recognition or cooperation with Israel. And if they want to do that, that's fine. But that's actually going to be a lot more detrimental for them than it will be for us.
Is this like the neighbor that keeps throwing rocks in your window threatens to move away, or threatens to?
The comparison that I make, I mean, this is not against Palestinians as a people, but against their government. If I want to put this in a way that helps people understand, if the Palestinian Authority wants to stop, it is threatening to not have anything to do with me, I would equate that in medical terms to a cancerous tumor that threatens to cut itself out of me if I don't let it kill me.
That's funny.
Hateful.
Please leave.
I mean, they won't go anywhere. This is not going to result, if they actually do this, it's not going to result in any physical person being moved. But I mean, the Oslo Accords are literally the only thing that gives the Palestinian Authority any legitimacy whatsoever. So if they want to withdraw from that, I mean, okay, fine. We'll roll our troops back into Ramallah and Jericho and Tulkarem and places like that. We'll see how much you like that, because
Okay, I got a Parsha question for the room. And this is something I noticed, or I really noticed much more this year when I'm reading through. I've got 3 different Chumashes I look at, okay, right now. Study Bibles of the Torah. I've got a Gutnik, which is my one I'm exploring kind of as a noob. I've got a Stone Edition, and I've got my Sansino here, the Hertz. And I think I can say safely that a great deal of my time in reading through the Parshas or the Torah, even early on when I started this Noahide thing, it was always that Aaron was the prophet of Moses when going before Pharaoh. If you remember in the story in this week's Parsha in Exodus, Moses says, "How can I don't speak well. I'm not eloquent. How am I going to talk to Pharaoh, an educated king? I haven't seen him in all these years. I'm 83, yada, yada." God says, "Your brother Aaron will be." And in the Sansino, and I'm in chapter 7, verse 1, "And the Lord said unto Moses, See, I have set thee in God's stead to Pharaoh, and Aaron, thy brother, shall be thy prophet." And so when I'm looking, what does it say? In the Stone Edition, spokesman instead of prophet. And then when I get here, the Gutnik, whoopsie, hang on a minute, interpreter. Is the reason why this set up. Now, when it said prophet, I had always thought, well, Aaron God speaks to Aaron later anyway. Personally, even without, Moshe, without Miriam. So that's why I was always thinking that, he would be prophet because God speaks to him. And then I'm looking at it now, and I'm thinking, well, if he's facing this silly Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is the god of Israel, if you will. The morning and evening star. Let's give Pharaoh a little credit here. He's the end all to everything, right? Basically. And perhaps there's no way that Pharaoh would have been able to take Moshe seriously if he himself was a prophet. So can we say that, I mean, is that what we're getting out of the verse here, is that Moshe is playing the part of God and Aaron is playing the part of a prophet? Is that possible? Is that why, and with that, can we say that any prophet is basically an interpreter, or a spokesman? Is a prophet actually a spokesman? That was my little thing I noticed. Oh, that's something different. You know, it goes from translation to translation. I always heard prophet. That was the thing. That's what I always heard, or always thought of. But when I'm thinking interpreter, and then I'm thinking spokesman, is this for Pharaoh's sake that this is, and not as much for Moses? What say y'all? And am I off here? Am I crazy? Because I'm the numbskull of the bunch. So what say you guys?
I think it's kind of semantics at this point. I mean, it's, yeah, of course a prophet is a spokesperson or yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said.
Agreed here.
Okay, is the word, okay, my Hebrew is lacking. What's the word used? I don't have a...
Which, okay,
actually,
chapter and verse.
It's, I think I have it here in, it's 7:1. The first verse.
Exodus 7:1. Shemot 7:1.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And I have Kabod here. I could give you a link. I don't know if they censor it.
This is where the Trinitarian Christian have a ball with this one. Yeah, so it's Vayomer Hashem el Moshe Ra'eh Netatecha Elohim LaFaro. And the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother shall be your prophet. It basically, it's not a literal, you know, I'm making you a god as in like me, an extension of me. I'm making you my representative. There's actually a very similar wording used in the book of Isaiah.
Is this a common word used for prophet if we were to refer to Isaiah or Zechariah?
No, I mean, it's this particular wording is used almost exclusively when the prophet in question is representing God's command before a king or someone important.
Okay, if I may make so, what is the Hebrew word that we're using for interpreter, prophet, spokesman, and does that differ from what we would
for Moses, prophet, or for Aaron?
Well, for Aaron, is there a difference in the word used for Aaron as a prophet juxtaposed to the word we would refer to Isaiah or Zechariah or Ezekiel?
It's just Nevi. A Navi.
Navi, all around?
Yeah, I mean, that's the most common Hebrew term for prophet. There's a couple times you'll see the term Ro'eh, which I believe is actually the name of the village I live in, Kafar HaRo'eh, which means seer or someone who sees, which is like a lesser form of prophet, which is what Jewish tradition considers Daniel to be. While Christians tend to see him as a prophet, Jews tend to see him as just a seer, someone who has certain attributes of a prophet but isn't actually a prophet.
Is Joseph a seer?
Who?
Joseph, son of Yaakov. Was he a seer?
I thought you said Jose. I'm like, who the hell is Jose? Yeah, he's a prophet.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it was when it says you will be God to Pharaoh. It's for Pharaoh's benefit. Is what I got from that. It wasn't ever. I couldn't find anything in the previous chapter. If you're following along at home, by the way, the Parsha today starts at Exodus chapter 6, and goes through chapter 9 all the way through. If you're following along at home to know where we're talking about, what we're getting at here. I can't see anything that said that it was Moses's lack of eloquence being the reason why Israel didn't take a shine to him immediately. I would see that as just years of subjugation that break anybody, but maybe it was like for Moses's benefit, but at the same time it seems to me that that's also for Pharaoh's benefit, that he would give him someone along with Moses, that Aaron would, we always think of, Moses throwing down the staff. It was Aaron who did all this stuff. Aaron was the man. He was the go-between. He was the, for all this stuff.
I just, you know what? That's an interesting way of explaining that, James. I never really realized that until now. You're right. He's sort of, wow, that's interesting. Like Pharaoh's like the extreme opposite of One Direction, right? And then you have Moses, who's the extreme opposite in the other direction, holiness, right? And it's like there's Aaron right there, smack in the middle, sort of bridging the spiritual with the physical.
It's the duty of a priest, isn't it? Aaron would be the man, wouldn't he? Speaking of Aarons and speaking of early January, happy birthday to Elvis Aaron Presley. Thank you very much.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
His middle name was Aaron? I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, Elvis was cool, man. He was big on the Old Testament, and he was heavy. Elvis was a lot heavier than we might give him credit for, man. He was pretty deep, dude.
Was Elvis a member of the tribe?
Well, we're not sure. It's actually in dispute. It's
really
possible.
Really?
It's very much possible. Yeah, it's not 100% confirmed either way, but yeah, it's very much possible that Elvis was halakhically Jewish.
The temple I go to, the kids that go there, they're so sweet and they're so funny and they're cute. They're adorable kids. And they didn't, they thought, that I'm 100% a Yid, right? They didn't think I was, doing my whole thing about, converting and stuff. And so I said to one of the kids, I go, well, technically I'm somewhat, I'm somewhat there. I forget exactly how I put it. I think I said I'm sort of Jew-ish. Like I made that that joke, like, well, I'm not a Jew. I'm kind of Jewish. And the kid looked at me with like this innocent smile and he goes, what are you saying? You're reformed? And I'm like cracking up because it's, I'm like, oh, it's like kind of like it reminded me of how you were putting it right with Elvis. Well, I mean, it's up for debate. I mean, what was he, reformed or something? What's the debate about? I mean,
there's contradictory evidence over whether or not his mother may have been. It's probably something we'll never completely get to the bottom of, but it's possible. It hasn't been ruled out.
Now, see, I didn't know that. That was new. Now my mom is like the biggest Elvis fan. She got married in Graceland. All right. She is an Elvis fan. I was raised around the man. I was raised around Graceland. I've been there 13, 14 times. Throughout the years, I've seen it grow. I've seen I haven't been there since they built the new Graceland Hotel and all that. But I mean, I always liked Elvis because he was real deep and all that good stuff. But back in 1970 and 71, he would wear a cross and a Star of David on the same chain, and he's I don't want to miss out on heaven on a technicality, but that was bold for him to do that back then. And there's a few of his movies when his character would be reading the Bible, he's always got his finger mark in the Old Testament, which is just awesome. And I don't know, man, that's cool. I got to spread that around. That's gonna be fun.
I think celebrities in general were cut from a different cloth back then. They weren't these spoiled brats. Silver spoon. Elvis grew up dirt poor. I mean, dirt poor. Like Great Depression dirt poor. He didn't run from the draft. He served I've actually seen his Army uniform, and his ID tags are actually on display at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, where I'm from. So I've seen those. So he was definitely a different kind of character. And for his time, everyone says, "Oh, it's so revolutionary today," or whatever. He was pretty. He was one hell of a performer. You know how to work a crowd.
My uncle served in the same company division with him. I've got a picture, a black and white picture, here at the house of Elvis in uniform.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. And the whole jumpsuit, by the way, came from a karate gi. He's like, what would you feel most comfortable in on stage? He's like, my karate gi. So they made him an outfit and that's, he does karate moves where Tom Jones do sex moves on stage. Yeah, Elvis didn't go that way. Everyone thought he did. No, he went karate. He's doing all his karate stances and his karate moves on stage. Cool dude. Elvis Aaron Presley.
But he lived too hard, too fast, dropped dead at 42.
He died for our sins. Had 12 guys around him to do anything he wanted. Sorry.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
We drove him to it by buying all his records and watching all his movies.
Didn't Elvis die in the shitter?
He was in his bathroom when
Oh,
he died, yes, but he wasn't.
Oh, he didn't die taking a poop?
No.
Oh.
That's the common perception. It's not actually what happened.
It was a big bath. I mean, Elvis, he had couches in there and stuff. I mean, what we would call a bathroom was not what.
Oh man. I love to have a couch in a bathroom. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think he was, if I remember correctly, he was in that transition phase between brushing your teeth and taking a shower.
And yet he still lives.
What's that?
And yet he still lives. Many have still claim to have seen him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lady that was claiming to have heard him when I was at Graceland. There was a lady claiming she could hear him. She was nuts, but that's beside the point.
It's a little spooky. I've been to the candlelight vigil event. I never went up to the grave, but yeah, people with candles and shrines, and there's almost a bit of idolatry, maybe a little bit, yeah, or not biblical idolatry, but by letter of the law, yeah, pretty much, it's a little weird. We never went up there. It's not our thing, my family's thing. That's where we draw the line, but. you've got this thing going on when these people, they cut off the street, and you've got, they're from China, and they're from Paris and Germany and Britain, and and apparently in the UK and Scotland and Ireland, they'll have like Elvis dances every month. I mean, he still sells big. All these people gather together, and it's not necessarily about Elvis, but it's all about Elvis, and it's a little spooky, just a little spooky. I've even been quoted as him being an idol, and I was embarrassed by it, but I was, I was on the boulevard, I was on the avenue, and I was, had a couple of beers in me, and which I wasn't supposed to do at the time, but I knew a guy. Yeah, he's like a conduit to a higher consciousness or something. Yeah, and they quoted me in a book. I'm not going to tell you either, but it's.
Oh, it's okay. I don't know if there's still B-roll footage of the time I was interviewed by CNN. That was embarrassing.
When was this? What happened?
Oh, this was in 2007, 2008. This is a long time ago. And they sound bited me. They interviewed me for 30 minutes, and they took 10 seconds of audio, took it completely out of context, and made me look like a gigantic asshole.
Fake news. You heard it here. Fake.
Yeah, and I've heard that CNN has actually gone downhill a lot since then, so wouldn't really shock me. This is why I really don't care for the media.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the 10-second thing?
And were you in America, or was this after you'd got home?
I was here. I'd finished high school. I finished high school when I was 16. I went to a non-accredited high school, so it was basically a joke in the States. And so before I could start college, I was just kind of doing a couple things here. I went to yeshiva for a while, and I was living in Jerusalem at the time. And I was actually commuting back and forth between Jerusalem and Ma'ale Adumim, which is basically a suburb settlement. And CNN wanted to interview a dual citizen, like someone born in America but living in Israel, what they thought about the peace process and everything. And I don't want to say it while we're live, but I'll wait till later when James takes it off live. Remind me then, and I'll tell you exactly what was said and what an absolute butchery they made of it.
Fair enough.
The echo is digital. It's my headphones are down. It happened. It's that quirk of Google. That quirk of technology. It's an imperfected. And I'm not going to complain about Google. You may rule the world one day and be the big computer, artificial intelligence that rules us all like the MCP. But damn it, I love your search engine and I love your Hangouts, man. I can't help it. Go ahead, John.
Are you wearing headphones?
No, sir, I am not. I don't. My kids kind of ruptured my sound card, so I don't have, my jacks don't work, so I couldn't hook up a headphone if I wanted to. Sadly.
Have you just tried quickly refreshing?
I can try it again. I'll try it again. Yes, sir, I did. But you know what? Let's do it. I'll be right back.
All right. While James is gone, we can act like animals. No. How you doing, Rosalie? Welcome back, James. Oh.
Echo's still there.
Bah!
Headphones.
It's a digital echo. Trust me.
Okay.
I know sound. It's a digital echo. It's a quirk. Any better now? Is there still an echo? Anybody want to talk and try and find
Testing
out?
1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's a.
It's slightly. It's actually a lot better. It's actually better.
Yeah. May I ask? Can I go back to Exodus 7 for a moment?
Sure.
John, you can do whatever you want. Exodus 7.
I
Go
forget-
for it, man.
Well, that's true, but I'm in your room, so you know.
You have the freedom to do what you want.
You do, and you've been here a lot longer than a lot of folks who've come and gone. So yeah, you're senior, dude. Go for it.
No, I was just curious since you have a rabbi and a couple of Jews in the room. I am curious on the take on if you probably gave an explanation before, but I wasn't listening totally. Where it says here, where the Lord said unto Moses, "See, I have made thee a god," and the word is Elohim. How is that interpreted?
It's
How do you guys interpret
a
that?
representative of God to an authority, to a high authority like a pharaoh. It's not saying, "Hey, you're literally God."
See, this is tricky, and I'm still chewing on this myself. Elohim is not just a name of God.
No, it's not.
Right.
It's one of the many possible names for God, but it can also be what it literally means. What the term Elohim means is power or powers, depending upon if you use singular or plural adverbs. But
Well, the word itself is plural. Im, El meaning God, and then Im would be plural. No.
yeah, well, it's like the same thing with life or lives or water or waters. It really depends on whether or not you use plural or singular adverbs.
That's
The
true.
same.
Yeah. Mime for water would be plural. Yep, built in plural. Yeah.
But if it's the same word, like say used in Genesis, that's
Bereshi bara Elohim.
where it kind of gets tricky when I'm looking at it. Because I know, yeah, as Christians will use it for the Trinity.
Right.
I've also seen an interpretation where Elohim can mean also a council.
Mhm.
So it could imply maybe an angelic host or something like that.
Right. Correct. The problem with this, I mean, I've seen the argument made. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense with this verse specifically to claim that this is evidence of the Trinity, because I don't think there's a Christian alive that actually wants to take the position that Moses was part of the Trinity. But yeah, you'll hear that occasionally. Time to time.
This is a big thing. And I've thrown this out there in conversations, and it muddies up the water, and I love it. Is in Genesis 6. B'nai Elohim. Are we talking about sons of God? Are we talking about sons of men? Are the sons of men sons of God? You know what I'm saying? But it's not specific, and there is a big debate on what that means, and that can change everything. Whole theologies can crumble on that debate, really.
How about there's also where Jesus was quoting the Psalms about ye are gods. I didn't look over there in Psalms to see if that was the same. Is that the same word as Elohim there?
I have to know which psalm.
Which psalm? I'll look it up.
I think it was. I'm off the top of my head. I think it was 81.
To heal 81.
I just put ye are gods into Google. Rabbi Google gives me Psalm 82:6.
I was off by Psalm.
That's 5.
Rabbi Google knows.
We're taking you back, making in the glue.
Oh,
Hold on, let me look at it.
hey, while everybody's looking, while the smart people are looking this stuff up, John, I want to ask you a question. This is nothing to do with anything, but just our friends. If someone were to refer to you as a Yankee, and a Philly guy, I'm talking. I've talked to a Jersey guy, I've talked to a New Yorker, and now I'm asking a Philly guy. If you were called Yankee, would that be considered a derogatory term?
Well, if you've forgotten, I'm originally from New York. Yeah, I'm in Pennsylvania, but I'm nowhere near Philadelphia. So.
Oh, I thought you were. I'm so sorry, dude.
No, that's okay. I'm an Eagles fan.
Okay, so all right, okay, in Philly or in Pennsylvania, is it any more of is it an insult to be called a Yankee up there in your neck of the woods?
I've really never heard of anyone calling someone else a Yankee up here.
Well,
And if you called me a Yankee, first thing, of course, I'm thinking from New York is the fucking team. Oh, sorry. Yeah, which I hate the Yankees. So.
I never realized that I had it confirmed. I have a lady up here who works up at the store. She's from Jersey. She's fairly new here. Spent most of her life in Jersey. From here, went and lived in Jersey, came back. And I said, I was talking to my friend. He's behavior analyst, talking about Frank. And I was like, and he and my friend from New York, they said the Yankees derogatory. Now, see, here in Texas, Yankee is just or in Texas, Oklahoma, whatever. Yankee, there is a Yankee bit. There's a damn Yankee notion, but a Yankee would be someone from the colonies, up there in the Northeast, because it's a whole different way of thinking, speaking, it's American. It's just different than, and it's like, no, man, you don't want to say that. And she looked at me when I said, so I guess I've been told I want to ask you. And she looked at me like I thought she was going to reach across and point a finger in my face. No, you don't call anybody a Yankee ever. I'm like, all right, no problem. Gotcha.
Why not?
So I was curious if,
If anything I noticed in Pennsylvania is, in my parts, is that since a lot of New Yorkers came over and moved here over the last couple of decades, there's some discrimination there within the states. Yeah.
Right. Okay. How are we doing on Psalms? Ye are gods.
The word is Elohim. Yes.
Interesting.
Which might not necessarily be a name of God. Right?
Because in the New Testament, like, they were picking up stones at Jesus, and Jesus asked him, for what good thing do you want to stone me? And you guys know it, right? They were going to stone him because he was.
Why would they going to stone him? What was the reason?
Because he claimed to be God, and then he drew back the scripture. He quoted back to them Psalms, it was 82.
It's fascinating. I actually read Rash. I went to Chabad.org and they have built-in Rashi commentary, and the explanation he gives is that the angel of death shall not rule over the Jewish people. So it's kind of funny that Jesus, he's I have to give him credit. He knows his Torah. I mean, he's basically saying death will not rule him. I mean, you're gonna crack me over the head with a rock. Well, guess what? It's not going to matter because death has no meaning to me. You know what I'm saying? He's saying death is not going to stop me. You kill me, I'm still going to live, basically.
Yeah,
Very interesting. Very interesting.
This is actually a really short psalm. So here it is, according to the Rashi. It's 8 verses. I'll just read it. A song of Asaph. God stands in the congregation of God. In the midst of the judges, he will judge. How long will you judge unjustly and favor the wicked forever? Judge the poor and the orphan. Justify the humble and the impoverished. Release the poor and the needy. Save them from the hands of the wicked. They did not know and they do not understand that they will walk in darkness. All the foundations of the earth will totter. I said, you are angelic creatures, and all of you are angels of the Most High. Indeed, as man you will die, and as one of the princes you will fall. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you inherit all the nations. So it's pretty clear this is a medieval commentary, but at the time it seems like the interpretation seems to be that the Elohim in verse 6 was referring to some type of divine but less than godly creatures in the plural, not necessarily God per se.
Can we, as just regular Noahide, B'nai Noach, Goyim folk out here in the world, the court, a proper court would, I don't want to say this the wrong way. I don't mean it the wrong way. I'm going to speak Goy vernacular here. The court would be our temple. That would be one place because it's commanded by God, one, obviously, but you know, as far as temples go, there's one for the lot of mankind, at least that we know of. You know, the big one. But wouldn't that be when I heard that God will, his presence will judge among the judges. We've got a heavenly court, we've got an earthly court. If we do it right, wouldn't we get a marriage of the divine and the mundane in a proper Noahide court? Anybody? What say y'all? Or Gav or whoever? I mean, am I reaching here?
I mean, I don't think that just because you have a courthouse and this is a place where adjudication happens that it should be equated to a temple. I mean, yes, that was one of the functions of the temple. The Sanhedrin met there, but it was also, you know, where offerings were made. It was any legal bearing it had was kind of a secondary role.
I dream of a court where he dwells there, that his judges are there as well. That would be lovely. That would be really lovely. All right, to avoid dead air, I want to get to another question I have about. I need to look it up. It was one of the plagues. When the necromancers.
Oh, nice.
Huh?
Plagues. I like the topic. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. It was the creatures, harmful beasts, a heavy mixture. Okay, this is what I'm getting out of my Gutnick. And I haven't gone to the other two. I was going to do that now after I ask you guys a while, whatever. This is when the power of the necromancer failed. So we're getting a level of, you know, the some say the plagues were each there for a sin unto Israel was being done to Egypt for what they did harshly. It was measure for measure. This is where the power of the necromancers failed, and they finally said, "This is the work of God," or the work of God. That's something to that effect. This is when they realized this was beyond all explanation, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, of course.
They said that's where God's hand was involved.
Okay.
Because they couldn't do what he did.
So, wild animals wreaking havoc is I don't. Okay, I'm going to look this up because I don't remember it sounding like this before. The fourth plague is what we're talking about here. Why? Okay, why now? What was it? You know what I'm saying? What is it that they couldn't fake? Is it because they were beasts? I mean, we had nature acting oddly, lice, but what separates the fourth from the third plague, where the powers of men fail? Anybody? Well, I'm looking this up here. Anybody want to?
Yeah, I have to grab my Bible for this one too. What chapter and verse are we talking about? The first plague? You know what? I'll find it. The fourth plague.
It's 8:12.
Well, what they were
8:12. Go ahead, Rosie.
What it was explained to me was that I told you once, I told you twice. I'm not telling you the third time. I'm just going to do it. So number 3, 6, and 9 plagues were okay. I warned you once. I warned you twice. Okay, you didn't listen. Boo. Here you go. And then it started again. So 1, 4, and 7. We got warnings.
Take care, Brother John. Thank you for showing up. So the fourth plague. Here we go. Okay.
The swarm of wild beasts. this is also where God, okay, we're talking on that. I got something else to muddy up the waters here, or a question anyway.
That might be above my pay grade there, James.
We also see at this point, I think this is the same plague. We're in the same. Okay, this is where Goshen was set apart from the rest of Egypt. So my question, now I don't remember, I'm going to go back and look, but I don't remember there being a discrepancy before. Obviously, fish in the Nile died. The Nile turns to blood. Obviously, that would have been the infestation of frogs. What I'm wanting to know is this when the plagues stopped reaching? Did Goshen experience the first 3 plagues? And is that why God says, I will separate, I will set apart the land of Goshen? Go ahead.
No, because the Jews are there. Because that land was basically given to Joseph and his family and everything else like that. So that was Jewish territory, basically.
Okay, I just found a commentary in my Stone edition. It's okay. This part's from the Ramban, the Nachmanides. The apparent redundancy. We're looking at verses 18 and 19, chapter 8. I'll go ahead and read them. And on that day I shall set apart the land of Goshen upon which my people stands, that there shall be no swarm there, so that you know that I am Hashem in the midst of the land. 19 would be, I shall make a distinction between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign will come about. That's why I was asking, does this mean that beforehand God was giving the Israelites a little kick in the ass too, like they did Egypt, where, because they allowed themselves to be enslaved? I'm reaching, I know. So that's the other thing I wanted to bring up. And I found a commentary here on 18 and 19. The apparent redundancy refers to 2 separate features of the distinction between Jews and Egyptians. First, God said that he would keep the swarm from entering Goshen, and secondly, the animals would not harm Jews anywhere, even if they were in the land of Egypt. That the animals did not enter Goshen was miraculous, because they came from far-off lands and were far more mobile than in any previous of the plagues, being fully capable of running to every part of the country. That's from the Ramban. The Stone Edition article adds that they were barred from Goshen was proof that I am Hashem in the midst of the land. I get the sign. I just wondered, was Goshen experiencing the first 3 plagues? And then God makes the distinction to let everybody know, not just Egypt, but Israel as well. Or those, residing in Goshen. That was my thing that was my Parsha notion for the week. You're watching the Nilvah Nexus on Google Plus.
That's a pretty difficult question.
It's
a good question.
Yeah, we can romantically think back and say, well, of course, God protected them, but why would He make the distinction now? Why wait till now? Wouldn't that have been apparent if God wanted us to think the first plague did not affect? Obviously, it had to. The whole Nile turned to blood, but you know, we got a couple other plagues. And then God says, I'm going to separate. I want to show everybody where we're going here. But it's almost like he kind of gave Egyptians a little smack on the bottom there with the first 3 plagues. I don't know. Ross, are you there, sir?
I am.
I would love to hear any wisdom you might have on this week's Parsha and or the subject of liberty and how it pertains to a Torah observant non-Jewish person, possibly a Jewish person. Anything to add, anything swimming around in your mind this evening?
We had this discussion earlier today, and you're right. The Nile River ran the entire length, and the river did turn to blood all the way through Goshen. The reason the Hebrews in Egypt were not affected is because they had wells. They got their water from wells. And the story is, or the backstory is, that the Egyptians were coming to the Hebrews in Goshen to get their water during this time of the plague. Yes, the frogs came out, but came out of the river and in Goshen, but they did not get anywhere near the people. Only the Egyptians suffered the effects of these frogs crawling up in their mouth and other places. So, as far as the first 3, yes, there seems to be an opinion that they encountered these first 3, but they did not suffer as the Egyptians did.
Actually, James, plagues 7, 8, plague 7, which is hail, plague 8, which is wait, hold on. Plague 9 is darkness. Plague 8. Which one? Which plague is 8?
I think I have a little answer to what you were talking about.
But no, I was just gonna answer James real quick. That there was a separation, that the plagues no longer affected the Jewish people. It says here that plague 7, which was hail, did kill Jews, and they were also affected by plague 8 and plague 9. Go ahead, Rosalie. What were we going to say?
Well, in the commentary that we've got in the Chabad on page 383, Radvez, under Radvez, it says it is forbidden to believe in these words of even Ezra, that the first 3 plagues affected the Jewish people as well, especially as the Torah indicates the opposite, saying, and all the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink, which is verse 24, without any mentions that the Jews did likewise. Furthermore, if the plagues affected the Jewish people also, then how would Pharaoh get the message that God was telling him to let the Jewish people leave? Pharaoh would see that with his own eyes that the Jewish people were also afflicted. Where then is the proof that God of the Jews was sending the plagues? And then Rashi says the Egyptians worshipped the Nile, therefore the first struck their deity with the plagues, and then he struck them, because Pharaoh was supposedly the god of the Nile.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that, Rosalie. Who is that commentary by?
It's in the Chabad under
Okay.
under verse 7:14, and it's also in another way. If you look at it through the Kabbalah, that Adam and God stood 130 years in the river. So to start with the river, to get back at everything going up, you'd have to start with that, and that's where Pharaoh says, "I am the God of the river," because his house was on the river. Everything he did was river-based. His palace was on the river, etc., etc. So that's the first. That's why they turned it
You're
into
breaking
blood.
up just a little bit, Rosalie. You're breaking up just slightly.
And Pharaoh, it was told, some believe that he had a force. I mean, not a force. He had a kind of leprosy, and was told that when all the babies were born, to kill like X amount of babies during the day and during the night, and be in their blood, and that will cure your leprosy. So God decided, well, to revenge the babies of that, all that he killed, that he turned it into blood.
Yeah.
There's no washing, and he can't wash as a deity. He wouldn't wash in blood.
That was commentary for explanation of why the Torah says there was a new king. And that was very good. Yeah, why there was a new king. It wasn't literally a new king. It was just that he had leprosy. Yeah.
Silly Pharaoh.
The Midrash says that Pharaoh stood 3 feet tall. You ever heard of someone having a Napoleon complex? You know, that tiny guy. Could you imagine? Could you imagine having a Pharaoh complex?
That's funny. That's funny. He was a yardstick.
I seem to be having connectivity issues over here, so
It seems like that the whole place is, because Rose is like robotic over there.
I shouldn't be. I'm using your headset.
No, the headset's fine. It's just that you're coming. I think it's a little lag. Google's having lag.
That could be.
They're undoing the net neutrality thing. What do you think?
Nah, I think it's just bad weather.
I think getting rid of net neutrality is actually a positive thing. But then again, that's just me.
No, you're right. I have no net neutrality where I am. I have the cheapest internet of anybody I know.
Works well, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
the only thing cheaper is running a cable from your neighbor's house through your window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or hooking up to their Wi-Fi password.
So, can a Noahide be a supporter of liberty? Is there a consensus in the room at all? I think yes, but I'm willing to say no because of the idolatry factor. However, idolaters and Noahides, Jews, seem to get along well here in a liberty-themed area of the world anyway. But when we go into a covenant, or when we accept our covenant, if you will, as human beings or as Jewish folk, is liberty enough? Can we keep this? Can I keep this? You know, that's what's say?
When you say liberty, I think of it. I'm very familiar with the naval concept of liberty. Anytime you're on the ship, you're under command. You just like you said, you squat when they say, you stand up when they say, you move when they say, you sit down when they say. You hit the dock, you've got liberty. You're off the ship. Now, if a superior officer is in your presence, he still has authority, but off the ship, you're pretty much free to go to whichever place you choose to go. You just have to be back at a certain time. Freedom, in my opinion, freedom as far as being a slave, you're constantly told what to do. You're not a slave, but it's just for your benefit. Okay, you're being educated. Come to that point in your life when you grow up, you leave the house, and no one is there telling you when to go to bed, when to get up, what time you have to brush your teeth, to just do anything. You start thinking for yourself, and then you take these responsibilities on for yourself. You should, anyway. But when you have the freedom to make these decisions, if you want to stay up at midnight watching some stupid movie and you got to work the next day, that's on you. You know, I got to be at the office at 6 o'clock. So I'm hanging up till midnight to watch it. Freedom is when you don't really have that person just standing right there saying, you know, turn off the TV and go get into bed.
It tells us that we have to fulfill the obligation of leaving Exodus every day. It's a mitzvah that you can do every day. It's not like a time restricted mitzvah. Like it only happened 33,000 years ago. That was it. Happens every day for every. So how does one fulfill that mitzvah? We're bombarded constantly in our lives daily of what it means to be pretty, what it means to be wealthy, what it means to be powerful, what it means to be this, to that. You're only cool if you get the new Jordan sneakers. You have to have the new BMW. If your neighbor gets the BMW XL, then you have to get the BMW XL too. It's not, you see billboards. I live in New York, and we're bombarded with billboards everywhere. Buy this perfume. You don't smell as good if you wear Axe body spray. You have to wear Calvin Klein. Got to do it. Not cool. Not beautiful. You got to get your nose job. I don't like the way you look. Get a nose job. And so society and life tells us how to look, how to dress, how to speak, what to do. You're being manipulated. It's not real freedom. You don't really have a freedom. You don't really have a choice, right? You're told you got to be the certain way. You got to be hip. You got to be cool, or else you're James. Or unless you want to be a twerp or whatever. I mean, whatever word, adjective you want to say. What God is telling us. No. Back up. I created you. I made you. You're beautiful the way you are. That's freedom. To realize that you don't have to get plastic surgery because your nose isn't the right way. You don't have to get, the new Versace suit that just came out. You don't have to. God made you the way you is. God made you the way you are to be, and God gave you a certain rule set. He gave you tells you what foods to eat, tells you what dress to wear, right? The whole Torah, it's about what to eat, what to think, how to feel. But isn't that taking away our freedom? No, the opposite. He's taking away these forces that tell you this is the way you got to be. No, you can be who you are to be. You get to be who you are. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the message is, no, you get to be who you are. It doesn't matter what you are who you are.
I was just going to say, yes, we are bombarded by this, by that, by. And It's all manipulation. But again, we are free to make those decisions and those choices. And part of that comes down to, like you said, accepting who you are, who you were made to be, not what somebody else wants you to be or thinks you should be. We're all free to make those decisions. And the TV down here is constantly South Beach diet, Jenny Craig diet, this diet, that diet. Get you, guys and women. They're not concerned about how you look. They just want your money. You're concerned about how you look.
Right. Be concerned about how you look because that's the look that you were meant to be, meant to have. Be concerned about who you are because you are who you are. I am who I am, right? I be who I be. Don't be concerned about what Bob is. No, what Tony and Ricky and Stevie and Johnny and all those other guys. Be concerned about who you got to be. Truly be who you are meant to be. Be the mensch that God made you to be. That would be my answer, James. That's what freedom is. That you're doing exactly what God wants you to do. That's it. Bottom line, right? And not only that, but change the perspective of it. Change the perspective of how you look at life. If you're walking through life, let's say someone cuts you off. You're driving, someone cuts you off. Are you going to flip out and lose your cool like a madman? Like a Meshuggah, like a crazy person? Or are you going to go, you know what? The Lord's in charge. God knows what he's doing. Okay, he cut me off. Maybe he needs to get somewhere. Maybe, whatever. You go with it, whatever you want to go with it. But I think that's what we're getting at. I think that's what freedom is.
Gab, I like what you said earlier. It's for a Jew, liberty has a kind of a slightly different meaning, and that is it getting in our way of worshiping Hashem. And I like that. I mean, we seem to have gotten better on that end, even in Europe, to some degree. It's not as bad as it was a few hundred years ago. I've just never stopped to take, because I consider myself a libertarian-minded person as an American. I'm an American first. I'm not an Israelite. I'm a half a ger. I'm not a real ger. I'm an American. I've always gone the route of liberty. I've never second guessed that before. And, everyone's on the Trump train and all, but he's not exactly a libertarian guy. Am I wrong, for standing up for liberty as a Noahide? That's as an American and one who keeps the seven. Is there a conflict? Should I really support the allowance of people to worship idols?
Yes.
It's not about power to control it either way. You could pass laws, people still do it in private. There are countries in the world right now where it's completely illegal to be a homosexual. There's still homosexuals in those countries. Affecting change in people's behavior through the law is a piss poor way of actually changing their behavior.
Even in Judaism?
No. Well, I mean, if you look, in 2018, I could walk away from this tomorrow. I'd be like, hey, honey, to hell with it. We're going to drive this Saturday. going to have a bacon cheeseburger for the first time in our lives. I could do that and face no real repercussion. Yeah, granted, I'll lose my job, but that's and there won't be any real penalty for it. I do this because I believe in it. I don't believe in coercing people, even other Jews, even though they're liable, even though that they're supposed to do it. If they don't believe in it, I can't force them to keep this. One, in my own personal opinion, it's immoral to do so. But the thing is what virtue is there in coerced observance? One through an arm of the state to keep Shabbat, or to put on tefillin, or to keep kosher or whatever. There's no virtue in that. They're not actually. There's no merit to it, and I mean, they don't want to do it. They're doing it because they're forced to do it. It has to be an individual's human choice.
Another way to look at it is, if you want them to respect the choices you made about how you're living your life, you should do the same for them.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that someone worships an idol, because the thing is, though, James, I mean, think about it. When they realize that what they're doing is wrong, think about the great opportunity they have to make such a positive connection to the Lord. Think about that comeback. I mean, when you really think about it, right, James? When it just finally snaps and it clicks in their head. Oh, right. And they're like, oh, right. Think about that. And then that elevates them, that compels them to be even greater.
I've always been told we want to compel people to keep the 7. In the land of liberty, my country, supposedly, it's the label anyway. A lot of added ingredients, artificial flavors, but on the tin it says liberty. I have to allow for blasphemy. I have to allow for idolatry. The other 5, even half-heartedly, are observed pretty much coast to coast. We could argue denim, or everment high. We could argue that the limb of a living animal, but there are standards set by the USDA. Half-hearted or not, it's there. But this is also a contention that a lot of folks have on the secular end of humanity, who are asking questions about Noahide law. It's not necessarily idolatry, but definitely blasphemy, the freedom. And so I'm wondering how is this something I have to be internal with? And is this how I keep denim, the den of these 2 laws anyway in my life, is just by not doing them and setting the example to those who do? Is that enough as a B'nai Noach? How far do we want to allow people to do it? Shouldn't there be something? When they say that's the one thing, are you allowed to do? We don't proselytize. Everyone says that Jews don't proselytize. They're not on street corners shaking the fist, thumping the Torah scroll. It just doesn't happen. And yet there was a time when Jews did, and they always tell the Noahide folk. They tell us, you're compelled to, or it's your duty to compel this on the nations. So would you say these 2 commandments are the only 2 that we can not murdering, obviously, but as far as setting, I think
if you're trying to say is to let people know that it exists and that they should be held to somewhat of a standard, sure, of course, James, of course. Let them know that there's a Noahide code, obviously. But if we look at the book of Genesis, right, Bereshit, how did they live? How did the lives of how did Adam and Noah and Shem and all these people, right, live? not to, I'm going to use, I guess, a Christian saying, it was their walk with the Lord. Adam sinned, and he paid the price for it. And no one was there shaking their fingers saying, oh, you did that. No one was looking at Cain and saying, pointing the finger at him, oh, you broke one of the commandments. I'm going to compel you to face the consequences or something. No, it was, he came to the realization on his own. I mean, Esav was a blasphemer. I mean, you're saying, are you to put up with blasphemy? Well, I mean, obviously, according to Genesis, they were okay. Everyone seemed to be okay with Esav being a blasphemer and an idol worshiper, right? I never heard anyone saying, pulled Esav to the side by his ear, hey, bad boy, smack him in the head with a newspaper. No, he came to the conclusion what he, I don't know if he ever repented, but obviously died. He got beheaded. He died. He faced his demise. He sinned, and therefore he was cursed, and therefore he died. But
no one.
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No one put him on trial for it.
Exactly. Right. God put him on trial by giving him harsh decrees. Right. It compelled him to be even worse of a person. Like, he was a bad person, and so he can keep. How do I put this? Every time he did something wrong, it became like a snowball running down. Right. One sin became even bigger sin. Right. And eventually it crashed, right? That's it. Bye-bye. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works out like Cain. It worked out for the best, right? He became a really great guy. Sometimes Esav, it didn't work out so well. I use that as an example because we're talking about B'nai Noah, so I mean, it's kind of hard to exactly give an example.
Right. The perception is, I personally don't think I'm happy that the freedoms are allowed me that I am as a B'nai Noach, and not as a full-blown Ger Toshav living in the land, because of where I am in my life and the society I live in and who my family are. It's but at the same time, it's all about splitting hairs, and I want to know where I'm allowed to stand. Nobody wants a pothead. Nobody wants a doper. We don't want a hippie society. Nobody wants a hippie society. But yet there's our attorney general. He backed up some Obama thing about the medicinal marijuana states, where the feds can go after him. And I'm like, I sympathize when I hear the rabbis. A lot of folks, kind of came in, people chime in on Facebook and whatnot. And it was, nobody wants a dope. Gutman Locks did one. He's like, it's called dope for a reason. And he lived in the 60s. He knows. I know, what dope is. Nobody wants a hippie culture. Nobody wants dope. But I also wondered at the same time, is this something that we need to put people in jail for? And then I thought, does this get in the way of society? Do I have the right as a B'nai Noach to rage against the war on cannabis? Medicinal. Recreation is I think it's too stupid to even bring up in any biblical context. But from am I overstepping my bounds as a Noahide? How far am I allowed to protest my government? In liberty, under liberty. If I can't go so far in certain areas, how how dare I go so far in other areas? Do you know what I'm saying? Welcome, is it Dan? Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
How you doing? No, I don't think you're wrong personally, James.
It says to be a good citizen. I know that doesn't necessarily apply to us goyim out here, but if I am leaning Israel, if I am leaning Ger, half a Ger, whatever, Noahide, I got to be a good citizen, one way or another. A citizen of those who gather to study Torah, and a citizen of my great nation, who pisses me off, but it's mine, and so therefore I have a duty, if you will.
I'm kind of tired of this. I hate to derail the tangent and go off on another one. One thing I'm kind of tired of as an outsider looking into the Noahide community, there's this almost puritanical strain within it about how people have to act, how they have to behave, how they have to dress. That has absolutely nothing to do with the seven. There's this kind of like this strain of, oh, if you're not a Noahide like me, that dresses like that dresses like frickin' Amish, then you're not really a Noahide. And I've had people I have a friend who, I'm not going to say his name or anything, whatever, but he comes from a culture in which they don't really value a whole lot of clothing. And he's been told numerous times, oh, you can't be a Noahide. Which one of the seven? Jews, of course, have a commandment. We have halachot, we have laws about modesty and how we dress and everything. Noahides do not. You can pretty much wear anything you want to, up to and including absolutely nothing. Do I recommend it? No. But people draw up very, very, very thin and artificial ways of excluding people who otherwise might get into it.
We've had this discussion and or a similar one about how people, of all walks, apparently legislate or create law out of Agadah, out of Kabbalah, even, and that's where that's what I want to cut through. It is a bit of a I don't personally suffer. but I do mull over a lot of things because we're taught this kind of, there is what's the funniest thing, Gav? You just said you never had a bacon cheeseburger in your life. When you look at this Noahide, all of us bunch out here, what's the funniest thing that you witness that we do or that you've seen done in the past? Is there anything funny that stands out in your mind?
Could you be a bit more specific?
In what we do in regards to calling ourselves Noahides, B'nai Noach, keepers of the seven, our behavior in that context of being,
it's here's the thing. You have these people, and pretty much everyone in here is excluded from this. This is a criticism. I'm not aiming at you, any of you guys. But the tendency that I see, and this kind of ties into with what I said just a couple minutes ago, is these people leave Christianity, allegedly, start calling themselves Noahides, but then they have standards, for everybody. They're basically Southern Baptists without Jesus. And they're not Trinitarian anymore. That's the only real change.
Good point.
They're hyper judgmental. They often think they know the law better than Jews do. These are the type of people, oh no, the rabbis are wrong. No, this is the way to do it, whatever. And this says in this, you have to do this way and you have to do this way. It's okay. What part of there are only 7 of these do you not understand? That, I mean, it's funny and I laugh, but it also pisses me off to no end because I see it all the time or whatever. Oh yeah, we have these seven laws, and you know you're good to go. It's just 7 or whatever. No, don't eat that. No, don't eat this. No, don't wear that. Don't drink this. Don't you dare have a beer for lunch. Don't you dare, don't you do this. Gambling? Oh, shame on you. So, okay, there seems to be a little bit of a deficiency in the math department as exactly how many commandments they have to follow. If you as an individual person or as the head of a household want to take on more than just the 7, that's just fine. That's absolutely fine. No problem. Consult a rabbi, but no problem. Do not go telling other people who are just in the boat you just left that they can't do this because they have a nose ring. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I see it every single fucking day. Pardon my French. Freaking day. And it makes me laugh and also I want to burn things.
This ties into our theme for the night. If anything, wow. Yeah, no kidding, right? If liberty needs to go anywhere, wow, yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's people say, "Oh, I'm free from the church. I'm free from the," like, no, you're free from one belief, dude. Everything about you is still stayed the same. You're still stuck in this very Western, I have to create laws for myself that don't apply to me in any way mindset. There's not a whole lot of daylight between where you just were and where you are now, but you seem to think there is, and that's a problem.
I think it's they don't lose that mindset. I think that's a great way of putting it. They're Southern Baptists, without Yashka, and it's they have this mindset. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe explain to me. Maybe Rabbi. But they still hold on to the belief of like biblical literalism and that you can interpret the Bible for yourself. Do you think that has a problem with that? They have a problem with that?
Every single day. Every single day. I was arguing with a gentleman just the other day, actually, and this is the variety that really makes me laugh. Because, I mean, if you ever see someone shoot themselves in their foot and get egg all over their face, watch this argument. Well, we don't, they quote unquote leave the church, quote unquote, allegedly, but they hold on to this idea of sola scriptura.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Only the Bible, or whatever. It's like, wait, you're a Noahide? Yeah, only the Bible. Show me the 7 laws in the Bible. Well, it was like, no, where? Well, no, you people, you Jews only go by rabbis. I was like, well, you call yourself a Noahide. Guess where the concept comes from? What book do you have to consult to learn about the Noahide laws? Don't say the Bible. It's not in the Bible. I mean, you hear that all the time, so that's another issue. And
yeah,
the funny thing is people who reject oral law, and this is a universal truth. You'll see it everywhere. People who reject the rabbinic oral law have to make up their own in order to keep the Torah. I see this all the time with what I call neo-Karaites, these people that, we're Torah observant Jews, but we're not going to keep rabbinic, they call it tradition anymore. The second they do that, in order to keep certain things, they have to make up their own. They really do. It's hilarious. It's hilarious to watch, whatever. Okay. Well, we agree. Okay. Some Karaites say it's not biblical at all. Some say, we'll put on tefillin. Cool. How are you supposed to make them? What are you supposed to make them out of? Well, you make them. Okay. Are men supposed to wear them, or are women allowed to wear them too? When do you wear them? What do you put on them? What type of cloth do you use for the scripture that's inside the box? Whatever. I don't know. Okay. Whatever. Whatever. These lesbians are gonna go to hell. Okay. Where does that say that in the Bible? Well, in Leviticus it talks about if a man lies with another man, it should. Okay. What does it say about women? Well, it doesn't say anything about it, but it follows that if it's forbidden from males, okay, well, you're making up your own oral law. Yeah, I agree. Lesbianism is not a kosher thing either, but you're not going to find that in the Bible, dude. And don't claim that that you reject oral law. No, you believe in an oral law. The thing is mine is actually rooted in 3,000 years of tradition. Yours you're making up on the spot.
I have to be honest, James. That's a killer. Sola Scriptura. It's a killer. It's
even the
bad.
Bible does not claim the Bible. The Bible doesn't make a very good case for sola scriptura. There are other books in the Bible that are referenced.
Deuteronomy, for Christ's sake, Deuteronomy is oral Torah. How can no one pound your head on the keyboard for me, please?
Yeah, it's oral Torah that was written down later. Yes. In the book of Joshua, it talks about, the Sefer HaYashar, the book of the upright, how that's where we get parts of the story of Joshua. I mean, we don't have this book anymore, but it's referenced in the book of Joshua. There's at least 20 to 25 other extra biblical books that are actually referenced and cited in the Bible. And you're going to tell me that, you only believe in sola scriptura? Get out of here.
This is where I struggle getting, and I think maybe I brought this up last week, because I personally find a Talmud study to be very depressing and messy. But I'm not okay. The sola scriptura thing, I'm guilty of this sola scriptura thing, maybe because I can't go wrong with Torah. And what I read in Torah when I have a question, then I go to oral law. And I asked you last week, Gav, when it comes to,
last week.
Or the last week you were here.
It's like a month ago.
Yeah, well, it's been too long. Anyway,
James is on Arab time. Don't worry about it.
It's Indian time, actually. Okay. No, the last time it was like, how do we, when it comes to what we study, you're like Torah first, prophets second, the writings third, then you move to Talmud. And
no. You move to Talmud. You move to the Mishnah.
Mishnah. That's right. Then
you move on to Talmud after that. There's a progression in what you should become familiar with before you move on to the next body of literature.
I personally find it much easier and to learn about the prophets. I started reading the prophets. Why? Because of Torah readings every week we used to study.
Sure.
And the writings, of course, that's kind of been there for all my life, really. Psalms and Job. But I learned best Mishnah. I learned best Midrash, even from starting from Torah. It's like I don't want to go anywhere else. My center of my life doesn't want to go anywhere else than the 5 books of Moses. And everything else spawning from that. And it makes so much more sense. And I'm so much more comfortable. And it's easier to maintain. And there's no shortage of teachings. You know what I'm saying? I can sympathize with sola scriptura because in written Torah, we kind of depend on it a little more. There's arguments all over it. I'll shut up now. Go ahead.
No, don't shut up. If you have to finish, go ahead and finish.
I find comfort in the Torah and always having the Torah. You can count on it. You can count on the language. You can argue over it for ages. It's enough to keep me going. And the rest, and then my learning is, I don't want to say supplemented, but that's when I learn of Maimonides. That's when I learn of Mishnah Torah. That's when I can branch out from there. But it's like the center. I can sympathize with sola scriptura because I kind of make the Chumash my base of operations, if you will.
Sure, and that's absolutely fine. And to be completely honest with you, for the purposes of being a Noahide, that's really all you should need. I mean, there's not a whole lot of fine points of law you should have to clarify using the oral Torah as a Noahide. And I can understand how studying Talmud as a Noahide would, one, be stupid confusing. It would be even frustrating and depressing. I don't necessarily disagree. It's a vast body of literature, and there's actually a very specific way it has to be studied in order to glean anything from it in any meaningful way. You can't just crack open a tractate of Talmud, read a line, and glean anything meaningful from it. A lot of it is very cryptic. It was written by people who were actually trying to conceal things within it because of the Romans. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of different language. The Talmud is written realistically. The bulk of it is in Hebrew and Aramaic, but when you factor in the Greek, the later Arabic commentaries from the Middle Ages, there's probably 5 or 6 different languages going on in there. And you'll have a run-on thing where it looks like this is a conversation, this is a debate going on between 2 guys at the same time in the same room. And really, it's an ongoing centuries-long debate between several guys across several different countries in several hundred years. So it's that aspect of it is. But I mean, if you really want oral law boiled down without all of the myriad discussions, get your hands on Maimonides' Mishnah Torah. That was the idea. So the whole point of the Mishnah Torah, of the Rambam, of Maimonides, was to make it so that the average Jew that had to earn a living and in the Middle Ages couldn't just sit around studying Talmud from dawn to dusk his whole life, would be able to have a firm grasp of the entire corpus of Jewish law, which is, of course, both from the Torah and from the Mishnah. And that's what the Mishnah Torah is. It's a condensed, basically, for lack of a better term, this is how you live by the Torah condensed. That's what it is. That's what the Mishnah Torah is. And so it cuts out all of the extra stuff, all of the legends, all of the, the midrash. It takes all the lore, all of the discussions and the debates, and it just gives you the final bottom line ruling on every point of law. That's what it is. And that's one of the reasons why the Maimonides was so unpopular in so many circles after he died, especially in Europe, because he lived most of his life in what is now Egypt. But like in Europe, they burned his writings. One, because he was philosophical and rationalist, and that was considered by some people to be a heresy. 2, the average common everyday Jew who went before a Beit Din could actually argue with the Beit Din and not get screwed. They didn't have to rely on anybody else saying, oh, well, the law says this or whatever. They could actually check their community Beit Dins and their community rabbis to see how honest they were and how well they knew the law. And a lot of people did not like that. So that would be my suggestion to you. If you really want to study oral law in a way that's going to be meaningful and concise with your time, get your hands on, start collecting, you can buy them in volumes. I think in total it's, I want to say 14 volumes. I'm not exactly sure. I have a 1 volume, but it's all in Hebrew. But if you want one with an English translation, it's going to be quite a few volumes. And just start buying English translation. Or Chabad has a complete Mishnah Torah on it. You can study, a page a day or whatever, and you'll glean a lot more from that than you will, just poking around the Talmud.
Thank you. And it was no disrespect. For me, it's a mess. And a lot of Noahide folk will, like you say, cracked up with a Talmud. Boom. I didn't even know that it wasn't even in English until 50 years ago.
No, not even. In my lifetime, it is in English. I'm 29 years old.
Oh, wow.
I was born there. English.
Yeah, that's relatively recent English.
Very with it. I mean, there's 2 editions. There's the Art Scroll Talmud that they've translated in English, and then there's the Steinsaltz Talmud, which they're in the process of still releasing English translations of it. It's not completely translated yet, but yeah, that's still an ongoing thing. But it's a very, very recent phenomenon that it's even accessible to the non-Jewish world at all. And even then, even if you get an English translation of it and you crack open a page, it's like, no disrespect to the sages, but reading a page of this without knowing where it starts and what to look for, and what particular thing you're supposed to glean from it. It's like the cliff notes from a college lecture that went on for 400 years and everybody was drunk.
That was good. That's good.
Yeah, if you think Chabad.org is a little biased, you can use the website Sephora. That I put the link in the description there. It's has that too.
SEFARIA.org. Another good resource. I've gotten, recently I've just been told to Creases 9a and Laws of Kings, chapter 10. It's like, there's enough in there to keep you busy for a while.
Yeah.
And I realized, just how in depth.
Laws of Kings, that's part of the mission.
That's one of my big arguments, that, if you're going to translate the different categories, if you will, of law, of the Goyakum to the Ben Noach, here, the whole thing will make no sense. And yet every translation I go to, they conflate the two into the term Gentile, and the whole thing just becomes a mess, And I realized, wow, I could just think of this one little block that I've been looking at for a year. I can't even imagine, and I know how it's set up. I can't imagine the conversation that's going on with all these. Yeah, because you think that they argue, you think that there are these two rabbis that are completely against one another, and it's not what it's about. It's an ongoing conversation throughout the centuries. For a Noahide, for me, for the average Joe, we don't need to go there, and a lot of folks do, and it's messy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's hilarious because people will say, "Well, it says this in the Talmud." No, it doesn't. Like, well, I got this on the internet. I was like, "Yeah, okay, the internet's a wonderful place to look that up." And it says, "Well, it says this and this about this and this," I'll be like, "No, it actually doesn't." Well, how do you know? Because I've actually studied it. I've been studying it for about 19, let's just round it up, say about 20 years. Well, how do you know it doesn't? Because I've studied it. Well, it says in this and this and that. It's like it only goes up to 54b. You're quoting something from 56. It doesn't exist. So, I mean, it's one of the easiest texts in the world to just make shit up about, unfortunately.
Well, when no one knows how to test it or where to go.
You can go to your public library and check one out. First of all, it's huge. It's an absolutely massive body of literature.
Yeah. Dealt with a guy a month ago just spewing a bunch of hate on the channel. I'm a cock for the rabbis or something. Someone wrote a comment saying that I converted to Judaism because I'm a cock.
Yeah, I remember. That's the other reason I want to bring up liberty is I'm, amongst libertarian circles in conversation online, social media and the like, there's a good, strong bit of, I don't think they know it, but there's a strong anti-Semitism. Let's just not call it, let's not beat around the bush. It's general. It's always the Zionist bit. It's never the zipped up inside of skin soups and controlling banks or anything like that. But it always gets down to Israel and Zionism. And there's a strong, it's not full. I don't want to label the whole movement this way, but amongst libertarians, there is a detest. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yep. And it's kind of a top-down thing, to be honest with you. I mean, people don't want to hear about it, but Ron Paul played a pretty heavy hand in allowing that shit to flourish in the libertarian movement. He even contributed quite a bit to it himself. So
Yeah, the Israeli lobby thing. Yeah, it's I don't know. I didn't know he contributed that much to it. I know the ending of foreign aid. If you're going to get the point across, you have to put Israel up there on the shelf with a bunch of them, I guess.
Well, no, I don't care. If they want to end foreign aid to us, that's fine. They'd be doing us a favor at that point. But that's another discussion. But I mean, it's this whole, he wrote in his newsletter in 1993 after the first World Trade Center attack that he thought it was us trying to bring down the towers. This was in 1993 when Al Qaeda tried it, so that America would go to war on Israel's behalf in the Middle East. And he said later that, like, oh, I don't remember writing that. I was like, well, it was signed your name and it was in your newsletter, dude.
Oh, wow, I didn't know it. That's wasn't there something? Didn't the Brits do something like that with one of their holdings out there? There was a revolution, and the prime minister had prior knowledge with Israel that they were going to help out or something like that. It was a big scandal.
Oh, the Suez crisis.
Yeah.
1956. Yeah, so at that time, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the new president of Egypt, he had nationalized the Suez Canal, which Britain and France, it was one of their main shipping lanes to get stuff in and out of the Persian Gulf into the Mediterranean Sea. So what the plan was is, they basically used us as a scapegoat, and we were kind of dumb enough to fall for it. Okay, well, he's violating the 1949 armistice. He's pouring Egyptian troops into the Sinai Peninsula, which was a violation at that time. So what the Israelis are going to do is you're going to parachute into the Sinai Peninsula and you're going to take it back. You're going to force the Egyptians back across the Suez Canal. And then to play the part of peacekeepers, the French and the British are going to parachute troops into the Sinai and retake control of the Suez Canal under the pretense of, we're trying to keep the Egyptians and Israelis apart. But in reality, it was, was it a necessary war on Israel's part? Yeah. Was it a necessary war on Britain or France's part? No.
I wondered about that. Yeah. You just seem like a middleman thing, Well, we've got some stuff that we're going to discuss offline. I've been waiting 2 hours to hear it. So now's the time where we sign off. If you want to get in on the after show, for those of you watching at home, join the Nilvah Nexus Facebook page and the Google Plus group, James the Idol Smasher at gmail.com.
Well, I want to give a little Vator before we go, James.
Go.
All right, before we end this real quick prematurely, I don't know what James was thinking ending the show without consulting me. I'm just James, I'm breaking your balls. So here's a little something for this week's Torah portion, okay? Hashem is always with us! Exclamation mark. For us Jews and B'nai Noah, why not? Throw them in there too. It has always been our positive attitude that has helped us survive against all odds and longer than any other nation. This attitude is not due to coincidence or even genetic disposition. It has been taught to us by God himself in this week's Torah portion. We read about the Exodus from Egypt in the Torah this week and next week again, and also when we celebrate Pesach in the spring. It is a mitzvah to recall the Exodus every single day and night. So why is it so important about an event that took place long ago? There are many answers, and here is one. The Exodus reminds us that God is deeply involved in our lives. We are not slaves abandoned to fate. No, we are children of the Lord, beloved and treasured. Hashem is with us today, tomorrow, and for eternity. Hashem's promise to us is unmutable. The term refers to our historical exiles that are contained in this week's Torah portion. Vayera. The four expressions of the exile are also expressions of the redemption. Vihult ziti, I don't know if I pronounced that word right, and I will take you out. And then the word vigaliti also means I will redeem you. Each expression indicates another way that Hashem will redeem us from Egypt. This is the origins for the 4 cups of wine at the Pesach Seder. I apologize for trying to pronounce Hebrew words when I have no business trying to pronounce them. Our Parsha contains an additional expression, Vehe Vati, and I will bring you to a good land. This 5th term alludes to the final redemption with Messiah. And this is the origin of the 5th cup of wine, Elijah's cup. Whenever, quote, whenever God promises to do something good, he never reconsiders his decision or ever regrets it, unquote. God does not change, and we can take strength from this. His promise can never be nullified. It is therefore that Hashem must fulfill his promise to bring Messiah. Adopted from a Rebbe's Sikla. Thank you.
Amen. All right. On behalf of Yochanan, Ross, Gavriel, and Rosalie and myself, Shabbat Shalom, y'all.
Shabbat shalom.
Be well.